Good morning. Happy Friday. It is the end of the week now, so I want to talk a little economics today and wanted to discuss briefly international trade at a very basic level. This has been a hot topic over the last year or so with all these tariff talks and rewriting of trade deals and things like that. We've seen wild fluctuations in our capital markets each time we get an update on these things, and just wanted to discuss a few components to trade that are often overlooked. Most of us understand that the goal of each country in today's globalized world when it comes to trade is to develop a balance. You import a certain amount of things and you want to balance that out by the same amount of things that you export. Some countries have been able to achieve a surplus in terms of they're exporting more things than they're importing, which kind of tips the scale closer to being a self-sustaining economy. But certainly that's not the case in the United States. As many of us know, we run a pretty large trade deficit here. We import much more than we export in terms of hard goods. And in fact, our largest export by far is debt. And that is a component that I want to discuss today that is unique to the United States, because when we export debt, that is, when we import something, let's say we're importing $10 million worth of cars from Japan. Most of the time, we're not exporting something of equal value, or we're not paying for those cars in cash. We're writing them an IOU that says we owe you 10 million US dollars, and we're going to pay that in 3 years, and we attach an interest rate to that as well. So the important thing to understand, and the thing that's very unique to the United States, is derived from the fact that the United States dollar is the reserve currency of the world. So all of our debt is denominated in our own currency. It's a very important distinction because it makes our deficit and our debts much easier to manage, and we are able to manage them much more efficiently than other countries that don't have that luxury. And I'll try to give you an example to illustrate what I'm talking about. This has been the cause of several economic collapses over the last couple hundred years throughout the globe. So I'll give you kind of an example. Let's say Singapore wanted to import some cars from the UK. All right, so Singapore wants to import 10 million British pounds worth of Aston Martins. So they get the Aston Martins, they distribute them into their economy. They say, well, we can't pay for them now. We'll write you an IOU, and we'll pay you the 10 million pounds in 3 years' time. That's the key thing, is that, the UK, they want their pounds back. They don't want Singapore currency. Singapore can't write an IOU that says, we owe you, 10 million pounds worth of our currency. No, the British wants 10 million pounds. So Singapore is forced to denominate that IOU, that debt, in British pounds. So the reason that is important is because, at the date of the transaction, there's an exchange rate. So the pound might be worth this, and the Singapore's currency is right here. Well, let's say Singapore's currency decreases in value by 50% over the duration of that debt. Well, now British doesn't care. They want their pounds back. But all of a sudden, that debt has increased by 50%. Now it takes 50% more of Singapore's currency to service that existing debt. So, there's a big risk for other countries to pay for their imports with debt, because there's that huge currency exposure. There's that huge risk of the inflation of currency, and we've even seen that in the relatively recent future. I mean, Venezuela, that's a mess down there with the rapidly inflating currency. Argentina, Turkey, they've all had some very difficult currency problems where their currency has been rapidly decreasing in value. So Not to say, I'm in no way am I saying that the United States is doing a good thing by running such a huge, trade deficit and, basing our entire country on materialism and relying on other countries to provide us, components of our lifestyle that we're unable to produce competitively ourselves. But it is important to understand that because of the fact that all of our debt, foreign and domestic, is denominated in our own currency, it becomes incredibly easier to manage. So while a lot of people get caught up, with these protectionism components and the tariffs and all of these different things, that is a often overlooked aspect of the United States approach to international trade and is a huge competitive advantage in the global arena. So hope everyone has a great weekend. Take care.